Hi, welcome back to Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color with your host, Dr. Toni Alvarado. Well, I'm glad to be back with you on this week, and I'm so excited about another opportunity to share with you. We have a interesting topic that we're going to be talking about this evening. We're going to be discussing our theme or our conversation today is on the topic of ADHD or ADD, and we're going to be particularly talking to women who are over 50 who may be dealing with ADHD or something similar to that. And we have our podcast guest who's on with us today is Roz Bogle. Roz Bogle is one of my best friends. She is my best friend. She's my ride or die. Everybody that knows us calls us Lucy and Ethel. And I'm just so glad to have my Lucy on the show with us today. But seriously, Roz Bogle has been a good friend of mine for over 30 years. We have been walking together here in the Atlanta area for over 30 years. And I can say she is a sister beloved and friend. She is a certified master trainer, 25 years in the field. Learning development is what she does, training and sales. Roz is 55 years old. She's a single mother. And she has a very interesting story to share as it relates to her diagnosis with ADD and what she's doing about managing that and how she cares for herself. And she wants to empower other women and share and bring awareness. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So will you all help me welcome to the show, Roz Bogle. Hey, Roz.
Oh, hello. How are you?
Good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Of course. Anytime I can talk about this, it's and possibly help somebody else. That's what I'm all about with this. So yeah.
Okay. Well, Roz, this is an interesting topic. This is not one that we talk about a lot. You know, we talk about ADD and ADHD when it comes to children, but we very rarely talk about it in adults, and we don't talk about it as women.
Right.
Women of color. We don't talk about issues around that. And so having walked with you and knowing your journey and being a part of your journey, I just thought it would be great for you to come on and share. And I know that's been part of your, lately you've been sharing with me how you want to empower and bring awareness to women and help women who may be struggling and maybe not even know that they're struggling, and some who know that they're struggling but have not moved to the place of getting help or even being transparent about what they're going through. And so I just want you to kind of share with us, educate us, and empower us on what it's like. Now, you know, I've had mental health professionals on the show, several mental health professionals, and we've talked about, you know, this COVID-19 and what it's been like for people, and how we have to care for ourselves mentally, things of that nature. But I've not talked with anyone who's had a mental health diagnosis. And so you're coming from one living with it, which is why the title of our show today is Living with ADHD or ADD. And so I wanted to get your perspective from it, from someone who's living with it. And so, yeah, talk to us and share with us.
Absolutely. First, let me say I appreciate the opportunity to share and to bring more awareness about this, because anytime mental health comes up, there is this shame that comes with that. And that's just part of our culture. And we are the last people to get help. I always say, and I've said, and you've heard me say this, now if somebody said, hey, you've got a cancer, we would run off to the doctor and as many doctors as we could. as we can possibly go to. But whenever the mind comes up, as if the mind cannot be diseased or there cannot be some abnormality with the brain, we shun away from that, because that's just something that we have grown up with.
Mhm.
Because we've not always had the opportunity to uh, to deal with our mental health, or
Mhm.
had doctors and the things to go to. And so we just kind of said, well, Miss So and so living down the street, she crazy, but well, we just kind of learn to live with it. And it becomes very detrimental, not just to us as individuals, but to our families.
Mhm. Mhm.
Mental health is not just in a bubble. It just does not affect just the one person. It affects everyone. It doesn't matter. It could be on a large scale, on a small scale, but that mental health issue, and then we just got to get beyond that feeling, that host, or having a stigma about mental health. Um,
Mhm. Mhm.
Again, ADHD, I, and as a matter of fact, I'm just going to be very personal about it. Me, very, very transparent. Um, our conversation, really, the diagnosis came from you and I having a conversation one day back
Mhm.
when I was in my 40s. And I remember um, just really struggling, because the thing with ADHD, it rarely stands alone at this age. It
Oh,
comes with depression. And now that I'm 55, it's wrapping itself around menopause.
oh, wow.
So
Wow.
it's a trifecta at this point. But going to the first time that I finally had to settle in my mind that there's something else going on here. And you and I were having a conversation one day, and I was in tears,
Mhm.
because the struggle was really I felt like it was about to take me in. I really did. Um, and I remember just doing the day one day and just kind of pouring my heart out to you about
Mhm.
the struggle that I was having, because the struggle was and is, let me be clear, the topic is living with ADHD. It never goes away. But
Mhm.
in that moment, it was, what is wrong with me? I can't
Mhm.
stay focused on anything. I know that, not to sound cocky, but I know I'm smart.
Right,
I,
right.
I know I'm intelligent and a quick study, but that has nothing to do with ADD.
Mm.
You can be genius level, highest IQ, but ADHD, attention deficit disorder. Let me be clear about what that stands for. Is, as my doctor told me, he said it is a misfire of the synapses in the brain, and that ain't something that we can fix in
Mhm.
terms of let's go have surgery, there's a medication. Nope. It's best way to describe it is just like electric current um in our brains, and there's the flow, and that keeps the electricity or the current flowing from one
Mhm.
neuron to the next. Well, in my brain, there's these disconnects. People with ADHD, there's this things where it's just not coming together all the time.
Okay.
So again, when you and I were talking that day, and I was just so frustrated because I could not figure out why I could
Mhm.
not stay the task.
Mhm. Mhm.
And when I look back over my history as particularly as an adult, I it has always been great ideas, start something, and then squirrel. That's kind of like squirrel, and it was always something that just kind of take me off track.
Mhm.
Or the flip side was to dig deep into something. It was, oh, I got to have this part, I got to have this part, as opposed to just saying, okay, I've got parts A, B, and C, but I would go so far in the woods that
Mm-hmm.
by the time I got in there, I was lost
Okay.
because you're just picking apart these little pieces that really had nothing to do with the project or the big picture. But my mind said, you got to keep doing, you got to keep doing, it's got to be right, it's got to be this. And then on the backside of that, and here's the caveat of that, is because my brain says, while I'm digging through and finding the answers to this, but my brain at the end of all of that said, "Okay, we've done that. Don't want to do that anymore." So no, so I would have all these unfinished projects because somewhere in my brain it said the the endorphins and the exciting part,
Okay.
it
Mm.
was over. Now I haven't physically completed anything, but in my brain I had. So
Okay. Okay.
all of those things come into play with attention deficit disorder. And while our show topic is ADHD, that it simply means attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Well, at our age, we're not very hyperactive. So, but
Okay.
the parts that remain is that it's just you're not able to focus or you hyper focus.
Okay.
You go too far in the woods with something. So,
Okay.
but the frustration that it brought, again, wrapped around the depression, because
Mm-hmm.
it's almost spiritual in nature. You know how we talk about spirits
Mm-hmm.
very seldom come by themselves.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This part says, because when I started beating myself up and feeling, at
Mm-hmm.
times I felt suicidal.
Okay.
It's like, I can't do this. And the frustration behind it was just overbearing. It was
Mm-hmm.
just so much, because this part of my brain says, why not? You can do this. This is so simple.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can't tell you the amount of businesses I've started. And then it's just like, okay, let's do
Okay.
something else. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would start to beat up on myself and feeling like I'm just not disciplined. Well, but the flip side of that says, when you look at the other part of my life,
You are.
I'm a homeowner.
Right.
I've been able to keep, I stayed on one job, not in one position, but one job for 16 years.
Yeah.
Now, of course, there was a lot of frustration going on in that, but but the ability to
Just stick with it. Mm-hmm.
was apparent. My kid, he's an adult. Never, not one time was I off. Well, I ain't gonna say off the mark, not one time, but in terms of being able to just stay focused on what he needed, it was clear.
You're a single mother and you have raised him. He's how old is Trey now?
He's 20. He just turned 20. He just turned
I
20.
mean, that's a huge accomplishment, and not that
Yeah,
his father's not in his life. We know his
right,
father is very
right,
much in his life, but you're the custodial parent,
right, right, right.
and
And
he's been with you, since you were divorced, and so I mean, yeah, and you've raised him well.
yeah, he's a good kid. Sometimes I look at him and go, I wonder if he got the right kid from the hospital. But then I look at him and I say, you look so much like your mom and dad, honey, you're ours. But that whole, the difference, it even makes it more frustrating, because you can be so accomplished on one side, but then this other part is just like you feel like a failure. Um, so again, just being able to finally get a diagnosis when I was in my 40s. I think when we
Mhm.
were having a conversation, I want to say I was
Mhm.
45.
Yeah, it
Um,
was in that time.
it was right. I want to say I was 45, but you said to me, after we had been on the phone for a couple of hours, and I know you was probably like, well, dawg, I don't know. Oh, but we had just been on the phone, and I went through every possible emotion. And you said, well, Rosalind, why don't you go? She said, you sound like Josh. And I said, hmm? And then you began to recant to me kind of the things that I was going through was the same thing that you all had discovered with Joshua and his ADHD. And
Mhm.
I was like, but that's a kid's thing.
Yeah,
That's
you know
in my
what?
mind.
And honestly, until you and I talked about it, but that day when we were talking and you were
Mhm.
sharing with me about you know, not being able to stay focused and stuff, and I was like, that sounds just like Josh, because Joshua got diagnosed, and this conversation is not about him, but he got diagnosed
Mhm.
when he was in third grade, and maybe 7 or 8 years old.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, but
Mhm.
raising a child with ADHD, and we
Mhm.
talk, most people that know us know that we our story with Joshua, and I've had parents reach out to me about their children, should we go on medicine? And let me say this,
Mhm.
all you Christians
Mhm.
out there that don't believe in medicine, when they asked,
Right.
we took Joshua to get medicine. It was
Right.
and there were some days I thought I was gonna need to take Joshua's medicine. It's been a struggle. And so yeah. And so when we were talking that day and you said to me, some of the things you were describing sounded so much like things we had learned being
Mhm.
parents
Mhm.
of a child with ADHD.
Right.
I was like, why don't you go, check that out? And I
Yeah.
honestly, and then honestly, when there are a lot of professional people who are ADHD but they're
Yes.
on medication and they're able to function or whatever. And I found that out from some of the seminars and things that we went through
Right.
um, in learning how to manage and care for Joshua. But I didn't know anyone personally as an adult
Mhm.
who was struggling with ADHD.
You didn't know anyone diagnosed
Diagnosed, exactly. Right.
because the number I think is 30%, somewhere around 30% of the population is undiagnosed
And you
with.
know what? And that's probably higher than that now.
Huh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So that is, that was as soon as you said that to me, something said, yeah. And so I just hung up the phone immediately. When we got off the phone, I just picked up the phone and I called my doctor. And because a lot of times again we start well, and I was like, nope,
Mhm, mhm.
because if you want something differently, you got to do something differently.
Oh,
And I was
yeah.
at that moment of, if I don't do something, something else is going to happen.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm not saying that to be dramatic, or
Yeah.
it's just
Mhm,
in that moment, I had just reached the end for me in terms of, I was like, something
mhm,
has to happen. I got to know
mhm,
what's going on with me. And so then, so sure enough, called the doctor and they got me in, I think within the week, and I went through a battery of tests pretty much half the day
mhm,
where, with the psychologist and
mhm,
psychiatrist, and
mhm.
came back with the test results, and it's like, yep, oh yeah, you have. I was like, I said, well, dang, you ain't gotta say it like that. Oh, but it was such a relief to
Okay.
finally know it, and that's the first part, to know what I was dealing with.
Okay.
And so part of the testing, what really was just talking, with the psychologist,
Mhm,
taking handwritten tests,
mhm, mhm,
um, that
mhm.
kind of answering questions, so to speak.
Yeah. Mhm,
So it was
mhm.
nothing invasive for
Yeah.
anybody
Mhm.
thinking, oh my God, they're gonna put things on my brain. No, they're not. It really is just more like therapy than anything.
And it's like assessments,
It is. That's
like we
all.
take,
That's exactly what it is.
like we
That's
take those personality tests and different.
yes,
It's like
yes.
that. Of course, we went through that with Josh, so I know what you're talking about. And you're right. Like, we would drop him off, and there would be like a whole day of testing that he would have to do at
Yeah,
different junctures in his development. Yeah.
yeah. And
Hmm.
you don't feel in my mind, I was thinking, this ain't gonna get me nowhere. And I'm telling you, this is what I was thinking. But again, when they came back and said, yeah, and in part of that assessment caused me to have to think back
Okay.
to, even as a child, and my teacher would always say, she's so smart, but she daydreams a lot. That was
Oh,
part of ADHD.
okay.
I would quickly finish my work and then I would leave the room mentally. Leave the room. Just literally. So And so it was just all those kind of things that allowed me to say,
Okay.
that's what that was. College was a challenge. And which was, again, it was enlightening to know, but it was also sad because I said, wow, had I known this when I was in
Mm.
college.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Mhm.
don't get me wrong, I feel like, I'm good. I'm successful. I'm handling my business. But I feel like I could have been so much more had I
Mhm.
been able to say, oh, and I know my parents, had
Mhm.
they known,
They
they
did what they knew
but
to do.
they
Mhm.
know that was never, nobody knew
Mhm.
a thing about that in the 70s. But I know my dad and my grandmother would have,
At
they
least
had
we did,
walked me to
at
the
least
doctor
we
that
didn't
would have.
know. At least our communities didn't know. Yeah.
Right, right, right.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then when they did start diagnosing people with it, it was like, oh, and I've had some feedback about that, uh, not recently, but where people are like, well, that's just in your mind. And then you
Mhm.
know me.
Uh-huh.
Like, wait a minute. So, because it's not in your mind. And I think that's the other part where the shame comes in, because we don't understand in our community when we say things like, you're just making that up, or they're just putting that on our kids. Particularly,
Mhm.
you've heard that where they
Mhm.
say
Mhm.
they just trying
Mhm.
to find something to railroad our kids. That's not it. Because I also believe that ADHD is and ADD, there's something environmental about that as well.
Okay.
There's something about, um, again, the mind is a disease,
Mhm.
dis-ease of
Mhm.
the mind. But I also believe that there is something environmentally that happened, such as, and this is just from my own study as well. I'm not a doctor where this is concerned, but there's something about what we're putting in our bodies, some of the
Mhm.
chemicals, because it's
Mhm.
just too much of it going on. So when we talk
Yeah,
about our
yeah,
children,
yeah.
and we're saying, well, where did this come from? We didn't have this when we were younger. We did. Wasn't diagnosed, and it has become worse, I think, because if you think about it, Toni, when the kids go to school and they drink milk, which is supposed to
Mhm.
be good for them, the
Mhm.
hormones that's in that milk,
Yeah.
these little girls
Yeah.
that, all right,
You're
they
right.
got stuff. I'm like,
You're right. You're
never
so
got
right.
that.
You're right.
Never got these, something like that. But
You're right.
they're 12 and
Mhm.
they're getting
Mhm.
there.
Mhm.
So it's those kind of things that said, now if it's affecting this on that little girl, or if it's affecting her behind, where then it's got to be affecting some other things. So that's just kind of how I've come to kind of say, yeah, we got to think about too. And when you start hearing people say, well, I started taking my child off of this, or I stopped eating this,
Mhm.
you are, the self-care guru, and you eat like a rabbit, but hey,
I do not. I
you don't eat no meat, really? No.
I eat meat. I just eat very little, and I don't eat red
Yeah.
meat, but I eat chicken and fish.
But you can't tell me. I eat with you all the time. I be like, you don't eat that? You're not gonna eat that. But and I know
I
that.
eat
So
calamari.
yes, we do. We love calamari. uh, so again, the diet, environmental, yes, I do believe
Mhm.
that has something to do with it. But for me, I had to take medication. I have to take medication
Mhm.
daily,
Okay.
because again, without it, ADD triggers the other parts. It triggers the
Okay.
depression.
Okay.
Um, I think you and I were what was it, last week we were talking, and you was like, you was feeling a little off with me. I was like, no, what about you? But as and that's another thing, when you're in relationship with people, you said to me, you said, when you're going through your little thing, let me know. And I have to be willing to communicate, hey,
Mhm.
I'm in a low place right now. And
Mhm.
it could very well be because, yeah, I may have taken my medicine because the medicine isn't the panacea. It's not like it
Right,
fixes
right, right,
anything.
right,
It
right.
gives you a window of opportunity to manage it for the day. And everything is day by day.
So the medicine gives you an opportunity to manage it for the day.
Yeah.
I hear you. Mhm,
Yes. Yes. So,
mhm, mhm.
I just was talking to my doctor because I had to go back into therapy. I thought, most people when they're, have mental, it's okay. I'm just taking my medicine. I'm good.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Mhm.
with the therapy, you got to have you got to have that part too.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
Thursday, he and I were talking, my psychologist and I were talking, and he said, yeah, I think it's time. He said, because of the hormonal and everything that's going on,
Mhm.
let's increase your medication.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
had to explain to him the last couple of weeks, I was really low. I was
Yeah,
really, really
and
having a
I
hard
could tell.
time.
And I could tell.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say this too, Roslyn.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I know when we had that conversation one time before, um, and I said to you, I said, well, let me know when you're having,
Mm-hmm.
you're in one of your places. But then what I had to learn was not wait on you to tell me. I had to observe and know.
Mm-hmm.
And I
Mm-hmm.
had to know how to when to pull in close to you and when to back up and just kind of let you go through what you were going through, or when
Mm-hmm.
to kind of try to snap, pull you out of it in a sense.
Right. Right.
Not to pull you out of it, but just when to draw close and when to kind of back up and just kind of let you process where you are. And one of my guests for this month. This is November's National Caregiver Month.
Mm-hmm.
And Jerry from the
Mm-hmm. Jump rope. Yeah. Yeah.
she's caring for her father. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the things she said in that show, and it just reminds me of what we're saying here. She said that a lot of times caregivers, people will say to caregivers, "Let me know if you need something." And she said we
Right.
shouldn't do that. She said what we
Yeah.
should do is just they need something. You may not
Yeah.
know exactly what they need, but she was like, just
Yeah.
drop off some groceries at the house, or drop
Yeah.
a gift card off at the house, or something, or just let them know that they're not alone. Stop. And she was saying how
Right.
one of her friends came to the house and said, "Hey, I'm just gonna come give you a few hours break," and she caring for her father, and
Yeah. Yeah.
take care of things, and let her go get some rest. And she was saying because most times they're not going to tell you when they need something.
Right.
And so, do you find that to be the same with what?
Absolutely, because you don't even, and particularly with my personality type, we'll just
Okay.
call it that.
Mm-hmm.
That whole "I got this" or "I'm
Oh,
independent." I may stay in the bed crying all day, but my whole, the way I present myself in life is, "I got this. Back up. I'm good." So sometimes I don't know how to articulate that I'm in need. I don't
mm-hmm.
know, because I've always been in that posture of defense of, let me handle it. I got it.
And we
Last,
talked about that recently. Remember, I think we saw an article. Somebody put an article out
mhm,
about that.
mhm,
Why
mhm.
don't women?
Yeah,
Why don't we
yeah,
ask for help?
yeah. Because see, that's what I mean about all those things that just kind of start wrapping themselves around each other, and there's no delineating line necessarily, but one thing leads to another. One thing leads to another, and then now you just kind of wrapped up in this ball, and you don't sometimes you just don't have the strength to get out of it. So it's important. It is important to have your teammates and your loved ones and your
Board of
cheerleaders.
directors.
Yes, your board
I
of
talk about that
directors.
in my book. The
Yes,
self-care board of directors. Yes,
yes,
yes.
yes. They'll be like, hey, where are you? And even though, and a lot of times you and I talk, and I'm thinking, I might leave thinking, I didn't even know that. Or I didn't know something, but just because we're in our conversation, it was like, the light bulb goes off. So now I know what to ask for.
Mhm.
My aunt Bonnie, when I was a couple of weeks, the last couple of weeks
Uh-huh.
I was in my
Uh-huh.
place. So, um, we call like you and I would talk every day, or hey, just checking in, da da da. So, I was not talking. I wasn't talking to you. I wasn't talking to her, but I just could not. And so she was like, hey, either you call me and let me know. She texted me, if you call me and let me know I'm on the way. And so I was like, oh God, let me just. So I text her back and I said, I'm good. I'm good. I'm good. I'm all right, girl. I was just working. Sometimes I hide behind working. But she did something that was very helpful for me.
Okay.
And even though when I text her back and she said, I'm on the way. I just, need to come back. And it was like early that Saturday morning. I was like, no, I don't want to get up. I'm not, no. And so she didn't even respond. So about 30 minutes later, she was like, I'm outside. I was like, oh God. So I wasn't, but the thing was, in them, I was like, oh, why is she coming over here? I'm good. I'm all right. But when she left, my heart felt so like somebody, she got me. She
Somebody
loved me.
noticed.
She
Mm-hmm.
noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, in that time, it was a game changer for me. It was like, okay, yeah. Because all of that, you kind of feel alone in that place. And so you're right in terms of how you were saying, knowing me the way you know me is, okay, let me just stand down. But then you too can be very pushy.
No, I'm just not. No, I'm gonna be like Bonnie. If you don't answer this phone, I'm coming over there. Period.
I'd be like, y'all kick doors in. I'm coming in.
That's right. Now, I'm gonna give you 2 days. But by that third day, I'm gonna be like Jesus. By the third day, if you ain't responding by that third day, I'm where you
Y'all
going?
start
I'm
calling
going.
Trey. Where your
Yeah.
mom?
Oh, where's your mama? What's going on?
Oh, wait.
So is that kind of so
Go
when
ahead.
so and not so talk to us a little bit about Roslyn. What do you do for, because there are women listening to this, maybe even some men listening to this. They may have other people in their family that they're now hearing. They're like, oh my God, that's what's
That's
going
what
on.
that is. Yeah,
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 or maybe themselves. And so,
yeah.
what kind of support
Hmm.
can family and friends give? So I want you to talk about that, and then I want you to talk about what things you do yourself to make sure that you stay healthy in this journey.
Absolutely.
So, but first, what kind of support can family and friends give?
First of all, I think family and friends can, like you and Bonnie did, is to say, a person. If you have been in relationship with this person for as long as we have, or as long as I have with my aunt or my other friends, if you pay attention, you can say,
Mm-hmm,
something
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
right.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people will notice something is off with the person that they love, but they say, well, I ain't gonna say nothing. She ain't gonna snap on me. But I think being able
Mm-hmm.
to
We
have
got to
people
be able
in
to
your
real.
life.
And there have
Yeah,
been times, and I have to say this, there have been times when you've been in one of your places, and I have to risk you being upset with me
yeah,
to
yeah,
say, hey, something's not right. What's going on with you? And I know she might snap on me on here. She might, but I gotta be will. I love you enough to risk that.
right, right, right. And that is one of them, when you talk about family, being able to do that, that is the best thing you can do. And it may not happen the first time where the person,
Mhm.
it's an eye opening, like, oh, okay, they get me. It may not happen the second time, it may not happen the third time. But if you love the person enough, you're willing to say, hey, I know you're gonna get mad. Like you'll preface it with me sometime when we have a conversation, you were like, hey, don't snap on me. I'm like, I'm not gonna snap on you. But just being able to notice. Because
Mhm.
a lot of times people just want to say, do you see me? Do you see
Wow.
me? Am
Mhm.
I being seen by anybody? And people, and the other part of that, Tony, is because of my personality, because I'm an extrovert, and because I'm like, ha ha, I'm the laughing joke of the party. A lot of times people will miss this about me.
Mhm.
They'll
Mhm.
miss that. So you may think that just because somebody is, well, like when I saw her, they were, just so happy and they was just laughing and stuff. But then that person will go home and cry all night, and really struggle
Mhm.
with
Mhm.
just the whole mental defect that's going on.
And then
So
when you hear that something happened,
yeah,
committed
you're
suicide,
right,
everybody's shocked. Remember how with
right.
Anthony Bourdain? I mean,
Yes, yes,
everybody was
yes.
like, and who was the woman that committed suicide, the
The
designer?
the designer, I can't remember her name, but I know. Yeah,
Mhm. Mhm.
uh-huh. I know. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
So I
yeah.
mean, and then
Fame.
you,
Yeah.
so then when you something happens, then
Yes.
everybody's shocked, like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like what's the man that did the show, the comedian, um um Robin Williams.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Yes.
and so
Yes.
I mean, but yeah, and so many
Hmm.
people. And I'm just so glad that we're at a place now where people can talk more about mental health
Yeah.
and mental diseases or whatever. So
Hmm.
we got to be able to talk about it, and we got to be able to hear and see people so that
Right.
we can be there for them when we need to be, and help
Mhm.
them get the help that they need.
Right. Right. And then you said too, how do I manage that? Beyond that, again, this is a day-to-day walk. Anytime you're
Now,
dealing with,
it shows up different in different people, right?
it shows up differently, but it will, ADD is pretty much is going to show up in, you might be working with somebody or know someone and you're thinking, oh my God, they're just so scatterbrained.
Okay.
Or they were supposed to be here and they're late all the time. Um, those are symptoms.
Okay.
Um,
Okay.
somebody just, you might walk in their house and you say their house is a mess. Now, fortunately for me, that's not my testimony. I
Hmm.
might be a little on the other end
Hmm.
because it does. You go from, because in my house, sometimes I feel like this is the only order that I have. Things that I keep this in order. I can keep this in order.
Hmm. Hmm.
And and then sometimes you might come in my bedroom and you go, so did a tsunami hit her head or something? Wow, all your clothes out of your closet on your bed. So again, from day to day, it can look very different. So
Okay.
that's what I'm saying. It's to first point out that while today it may look like this, but depending on what happens tomorrow, it could show up in a different way. So with that in mind, it is one for me, what I have to do is take my medicine,
Okay. Okay.
and also while I was on the same medication pretty much for 10 years, well, for a few years, the
Hmm.
medicine changes because my
Hmm.
body has
Yeah.
changed. And that's what happened. My doctor said, well,
Hmm.
you've gotten older. Some other things have started happening with inside your body. Um,
Hmm.
exercise,
Hmm.
exercise, exercise.
Hmm. And I
I
know you started doing that this
Yes,
year. That's
yes,
good.
and
And
and it
you've been so
different.
consistent. I'm just so proud of you. Oh,
Yes,
her.
I
I'm still
understand.
working out.
I understand you getting, I'm like, oh, Tony just be doing so much. But no, just so much. But then once you get
If
it,
you
it's
get
like,
addicted to it, I'm telling you, my body craves it
yes,
because I do it so much now. It's like
yes,
and I'm gonna tell you now, I don't think I have ADHD, but I will tell you this:
mhm,
exercise helps me with my thyroid.
yeah,
It
yeah,
helps because your thyroid being out of whack can make you
yes,
feel like you're going crazy. It can make
yeah.
you. It can also, because that was the other thing. I had racing thoughts. I couldn't focus
Mhm,
and things
mhm,
like that.
mhm.
And it wasn't ADHD with me. It was the hypothyroid. And
Right,
one of the
right.
things that helps me manage that is my exercise.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mhm. Mhm.
And I think that is so important. People think, you don't have to do everything that you do or I do, because I kind of just got into it because of this. But I started walking. I
Right.
just
I
started
remember.
walking.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but the endorphins, when I leave class in the morning, it's like, ooh, it's a jolt. You
Mm-hmm.
know, it feel really like I feel good.
Mm-hmm.
I can make
And
it
it's
after
supposed
my
to
day is
do that.
segmented. It's
And it's
like,
supposed to do that.
yeah. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay. So if I can get from 9 to 12 every morning, and that's kind of not, I don't 9 to 12, it's how I work. But I get up and go to class at 6, and I feel like if I can get through half of the day on the exercise that I've had today, and then I take medication to get me from the other half,
You
I'm winning.
you win.
So, but it is the man. But I also tell you what to help me manage knowing who you are as a person. Sometimes, like, if you know that your reprieve is being with a book, and like you like a tea, if those things help rejuvenate you, you do
Yeah.
that for you. For me, it is being with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking a whole lot bunch of smack, that revives me. Like yesterday, we went, just went out shopping for a little bit. Ain't really buy anything, but just being with my girls, that revives me.
Okay.
So you got to know what it is that happens for you. Now, I can't be with my girls every day because we all have lives. So you got to find things that work for you and your personality. And remember that it's not about I got to manage this whole month. What's going to happen November 30th?
Oh,
No,
wow.
you just got to manage this moment,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
manage this day, not even
That's
the
why
whole
Jesus,
day.
that's why Jesus said, "Give us this day our daily bread."
Yes, yes. He meant that, honey. He meant that thing. And with ADD, it's more real than ever because, and things change. I'm not saying you don't plan for, the week or the month, plan for it. But you got to be able to say, if things don't work out that way,
Mm-hmm.
let me just exhale and see what else I can do for today. For today.
Okay. Okay.
So that's just my biggest thing that I can tell
So
anybody:
knowing yourself.
knowing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
what it is that pleases your heart,
Mm-hmm.
um, that helps you exhale to get through this, and learning how to. And again, this is another daily thing that I have to do. When you don't complete something, or when something doesn't measure up the way you want, that you don't go all in on you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you've heard me say these words. I said, I feel like a failure.
Mm-hmm.
I had to step back from that and say, you're not, you're not.
You just reached a limit. And
Yeah,
if you didn't complete it, and I think that we do that, we drive ourselves to be sick. And it's not just with ADD, we do it in,
yeah,
in general. So we want to we don't know when to say, I've had enough. I'm tapped out. I can't do
yeah,
enough.
yeah.
I can't do another Zoom call. I can't do another
Right.
meeting.
Right.
I, I just can't. I can't do anything. I'm done.
Not
I'm
got
at
anything else to
my
give today.
limit.
Right.
When I got done yesterday, I was teaching all day, and
Hmm.
I was gonna meet up with you all to go eat. And then
Hmm.
you text me. I was like, hey, fine. I went and put on my pajamas.
I
I
know.
made some popcorn and got in the middle of my bed and watched the president elect give his address and advice. I'm so happy and content.
I know
I
you
ain't care
were.
what was going on. I ain't care what nobody else was doing. I saw everybody out in the street celebrating. I was celebrating right here in my bed, in my pajamas. Because for me, that's how I
That's
bring it down.
exactly.
And you got
Exactly.
to know yourself. And sometimes we just push
Exactly.
and push,
Mm.
push. And be honest with you, that's how I ended up with my thyroid out of whack. Pushing
Yeah.
and pushing
Push.
and pushing.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
so and it was
Hmm.
stress induced.
Right, right. And that is so key because especially with us as women of color,
Oh my God. Oh my God. Because
especially
we
with
don't
us.
carry the world on our back.
Yeah. And
So,
we don't, in our shut off valve, we don't know when it's time to just shut that valve off. So it keeps seeping. It keeps seeping until there's nothing left.
mhm. And
There's
then
nothing
look
left.
at you. Wow. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Wow.
So, and I think, I know, like the other week you went out, you went, got in the car, and went with your girlfriends and your preaching girlfriends, I call them, whom I love. Hey, Melody, if you're talking to that, I was so glad.
Yeah, I got in the car and just drove to North Carolina
And
by
just
myself.
exactly. And I do stuff like that all the time. I'd be like, you know what? I'm going to Florida.
Yeah.
And it just like get in the car. Don't be afraid to live your life. And even if that means I've made plans to go to Grand Canyon, I
Right.
want to see Grand Canyon. Do what you can do. You may not be able to do. You say, "Oh, I can't afford to do that." You may not. That's fine. But what you may be able to do is say, "But I'm going to drive across town and get me a hotel room." How about
And
that?
you know what? And one of my guests, Dr. Sarah Williams, was on, and she was saying that she and her children were talking about for Christmas, since just getting on Amtrak and getting a private car and
Yes.
going across country on the train.
Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
so many things we can do, even in COVID. We talked
Yes.
about that in the
Yeah.
pandemic. We got out and started going to different waterfalls in Georgia
Yep.
and stuff. And people like, wait, look, this stuff been in our backyard, Roz. We hadn't even taken advantage of it. But it was helping us. It was helping me manage my thyroid, helping you
Yep.
manage your ADD.
Yep.
It was
Yep.
helping us get out, because COVID
Yep.
in and of itself is bringing a whole nother
Oh my God.
dimension to it all.
A whole nother level of stress.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's adding to it.
it
Wow.
is.
And then, so I just think that whole, what I heard you say also, what I'm hearing you to say is be kind to yourself. Get
Oh,
your,
absolutely.
the
Absolutely.
same grace that you get to other people,
Yes.
give
Yes.
to yourself.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Because we are much harder on ourselves than anyone else could possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to just say particularly as women, as a people, we
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
Um, One thing is because we feel like we are, for lack of a better words, we're frauds. We
Mm-hmm.
feel like, oh, somebody's gonna find out that I don't know what I say. What I say I know, and da da da.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah.
about this, da da da. So we're
Because
always, you
it's
know.
called the imposter syndrome.
Yes, that's it. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So all
That's
that's into
real.
play.
Mm-hmm.
And especially when we now when jobs are um scarce or whatever, so
Mm-hmm.
people are really feeling like day to day, I don't know what, but
And
the
I
thing
gotta be on my game. I gotta
I gotta
grind.
be on that right. Be like,
Mhm.
girl, please sit down with all that. But because the reality is, and this is what I've come to know, while I'm working, and I have been working since May, working hard since May, but I could get up in the morning and they be like, you know what? We don't need no more trainers over here. So when we talk about self-care for all the believing people, that whole faith thing we've been talking about,
Yeah.
we gonna use it now or we're not, because
Wow.
right now is when it is most important, because we don't know what tomorrow holds, like for real we don't.
No, we don't.
So it's when we talk about the self-care, and I don't mean that in a whole spiritual
Yeah, yeah,
school kind of way.
yeah,
I just
yeah,
mean, God, you all I got.
yeah.
I have my friends, I have my family, I have my loved ones, yes. But at the end of the day, with ADD, all this stuff, God, you are all that I have. Now, God, I believe God shows up
Mm.
in my friends, in my family, in my situation. That's how he shows his hand. That's what I've always believed.
And God shows up in your medicine. He shows up with
Yes,
your therapist.
in
He
my
shows up in your
psychiatrist.
exercise class. God
Yes.
shows
Yes.
up. And so we have to get away from this feeling. And I know I'm not saying that, there's some people have decided not to take medication. And I know there are probably people listening here that don't
Mhm.
believe in taking medication. But whatever you're doing, if it's herbs or whatever it is, whatever way you have
Right.
found to take
Right.
care of yourself. But then there are people who need medication, and they should not feel bad
Right.
that they need medication,
Exactly.
and not take their
Exactly.
medication for fearing that they don't have faith. And so
Right.
that's also injurious. And so, well, Ross, our time is winding up. So I'm just so glad that we had this conversation. This has been I'm gonna have to bring you back, because we need to probably delve into this a little more, and just
Okay.
maybe you and a couple of other people on here at the same
Yeah.
time. We can talk with you and maybe some other professional women who are, like Dr. Stacy, or
Mhm.
somebody else. And then I'm just thinking about maybe just having a conversation with women in general
Yeah.
around different aspects of our lives and how certain things affect us when we go into menopause. That's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother
Mhm.
conversation. So we need to come back and talk about that menopause thing because
Yes, because we just think about, oh, I'm having hot flashes.
oh
It's so
no,
much the
so
things
many
going
others.
on.
It's not like you said. I'm
Yes.
having a trifecta right now.
Yes.
I got
Yes.
ADHD. It's triggering depression, and
Yep.
it's wrapping itself around my menopause. And so
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
need to talk about that
Yeah.
as well. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I am so
Well,
glad.
thank you for having me.
Well,
Yay.
thank you for coming. I appreciate you, Lucy. I appreciate you.
Hello. I'm
Listen,
sure when we get off of this, I'll call you, girl. I'll call you.
okay, okay. Well, listen, thank you all for joining us this week on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care podcast. Thank you to my guest, Roslyn Bogle, for sharing with us her journey through ADD, ADHD. If you're listening, please, please, please share this podcast episode with other women, share it with other family members. If you're in need of help, go and get the help you need. There's no shame, girl, no success in you suffering in silence and not getting the help that you need. All of us need help, and all of us have to go get and do what we need to do to be healthy and to take care of ourselves. Continue to follow the podcast. You can follow us on Spotify, on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts. You can go to my YouTube channel and you can watch this episode on YouTube, or you can listen to it on all the other podcast platforms. Women, join the Harmonize Your Life Women's Self-Care Network. We have a network of women. Rosalind is in the network. So many other of my guests that you've heard on the podcast are part of the Self-Care Network, and we are doing this network thing. We got a movement going. We
Woo!
really, 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 really believe in the message of self-care. We are applying these things to our own lives. We're not talking to you out of a vacuum. We're talking to you from our own life experiences, and we are helping one another. We are taking care of ourselves, and we are taking care of our sisters. Thank you again, Rosalind, for being on here, and we'll see you all next week for another episode on the Harmonize Your Life Conversations on Self-Care for Women of Color podcast. See you soon. Hi, this is Dr. Toni Alvarado. I am so delighted about bringing the Harmonize Your Life podcast to you. Would you do me a favor? If you are enjoying this podcast, would you email me at hello@drtonialvarado.com? I want to hear from you. I want your feedback. I want to know if there are any other topics that you are interested in as it relates to wellness, self-care, nutrition, or just overall bringing harmony into your life. Email me, contact me at hello@drtonialvarado.com.